February was a weird reading month for me. Like, I just went to like take the books off my shelves that I've read in the month of February, and then that made me just start thinking about the weird that was the month. Like, I guess not weird, I've got lip stain on my fingers, but there was no rhyme or reason to what I was reading in February, so I thought that we could sit and have a chat about it. I have a cup of tea, so I would get yourself a drink, maybe a snack, and we will talk about the end of January leading into February and where I was like mentally. So in January, I think I managed to read 23 books. I think that's where, no, there's no way I read 23 books in January. Did I read 23 books in Jan? I read 16, I'm not too sure. So let's just say that I read like 16 books in January. That is very hot, but very tasty. And then I got to the end of January and I haven't got enough books on my physical TBR to do any sort of like TBR video. That's why there hasn't been any on my channel. And then I also find it quite hard then to formulate a plan going into the month. So like what I tend to do is I sit and I think about the kind of reading vlogs that I would want to make for that month, or like are there any that I could make for that month, just because I find those structured videos A, easier to film, and B, they help like with the TBR. So the only thought that I had going into February was Valentine's Day. So I was like, oh, I've got a few like standalone romances on my physical TBR and a few that I just want to read anyway, so I could group them together. So I started that, which meant that some of my last books in Jan were romance books, and then a couple of like the first books I read in Feb were romance books. I think then the only other plan that I had going into February was originally to read the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy as a buddy read with and potentially Rebecca. Rebecca is a fallen soldier. I think she's been hit pretty hard with a reading slump. And I also, my goal that I set for 2025 was to read more fantasy. So all I had in my head was I wanted to finish off reading the romance books that I had, maybe read Once Upon a Broken Heart, and there were some fantasies that I wanted to read. And I feel like we'll get to my wrap up and you'll be thinking, Chelsea, like this was not the plan. And no, nothing went to plan. That is the joys of being a mood reader. And obviously like reading is a hobby, and like we should be reading for fun and picking books up that we want to read, but also it is just fun making plans and like planning to buddy read with people. So then it's just funny when that doesn't work out in your favour. So I thought that we would talk about a couple of books that I did try to read in February, and they are currently sitting in like the soft DNF range, because I feel like that makes sense. Bearing in mind, a lot of the books that I read in January were fantasy heavy. I read the entirety of the Throne of Glass series. Then I read Quicksilver, and I read Onyx Storm. So it was already a very fantasy heavy month. So I don't know why I just thought, yeah, in February I'm going to read loads of fantasy. I already had a month of reading loads of fantasy. Like, calm down, babe. Like, you have 11 more months of the year to read fantasy. So with that being said, we have When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I folded the page at 80, but I picked up the audiobook, and I'm sure I got further, but now I can't actually remember. Let's just say I think I got like 150 pages in. It's a soft DNF because there might be a time actually where I can go back to it. I have also thought that maybe I'll just keep going with the audiobook and see if it clicks. My current problems with this is that to me, if I'm getting to the 150 page mark and I don't care about the characters, is there any point? I'm a big believer in not every book is written for you. So maybe this book wasn't written for me to enjoy, but there are many people out there that it was written for. But I'm also a big believer in not wanting to miss out on a good time. And I feel like people were having a good time. Or I feel like before I picked this up, I was seeing so many people talk about it and being like, yeah, like, everyone needs to read it. And then as soon as I started posting about, like, someone motivate me, like, someone give me a quote or, like, tell me something that will make me want to devour this. And all I got was a lot of, like, oh, it is worth it in the end, or no, like, I never. So I don't understand with this one. So it's moved down to, like, the second row on my TBR cart because I just don't know. And life is too short. Then I tried A City of Flames by Rina Vazquez. I'm terrible. When I first picked this up, I think I got like 10% in, and that's when I started thinking to myself, I'm just not in the fantasy headspace right now. Like, I've read so much fantasy, I don't know why I'm forcing it, and good fantasy as well, like, maybe not Quicksilver, but I loved Throne of Glass. I literally cannot stop thinking about that series even now, and I really, really enjoyed Onyx Storm. So I was like, I just feel like if I were to read them now, I wouldn't be giving them a fair shot. The premise of this seems really good. So our female main character, Nara, I think she's got like 3 brothers, and their parents, did their parents pass away? So they all have to like fend for themselves. She's always wanted to be a venator, which are people who hunt down dragons, or hunt and slay dragons, because in this world dragons are dangerous. But her older brother is very protective, and he's like, no, I can't have you putting yourself at risk. I think her dad used to be a venator, and he was a really successful one. But he's just very much like, nope, you're not doing it. You need to be here, like, making money. And then one day, the venators are in town catching a dragon, maybe. And one of the guys takes notice of her because she helps out and is like, have you ever thought of becoming one of us, like training? And she was like, it's always been my dream. And that night she literally packs up and she goes. So saying that, when I first read it, I got like, what did I say, 5-10% in. Since then I have picked it up again and got a little bit further, and I can see the potential. Like, now that we're like I think I'm now like 25% in, and I feel like I can see the potential and I'm enjoying it. But I put it down because I wasn't fully in the mindset, and there is no point reading a book if you're not giving the book a fair chance. Like, if you're reading it and you just know, not right now, then I'm a big believer in just like, I will come back to this. It's on Kindle Unlimited, so I was flipping between the book, look at that, love that, and the Kindle version. So I will be coming back to this, maybe even in March, who knows, because I've started to like feel that itch again. And even now explaining that book to you, I'm like, okay. So this could be on the March TBR. And then February's book club book for Unstable Book Besties, which is a book club that me and my besties run, was The Other Brother by Tierney. Let me have a look. By Tierney Page. Because of how I was in February, like when I say at least for like the first week or two of February, every book that I picked up, I would read like 1 or 2 pages and just be like, ugh, I don't think I like reading anymore. You know, like very, very dramatic. So trying to read this one, I was just, well, I didn't want to force myself to read a book that I wasn't 100% sold on. Like, I always feel like there's a risk with book club because there's so many people voting on a book that not every book is going to be to your taste. And where that has its plus side is obviously you end up reading books that you never probably would have picked up for yourself. On the negative side, if you can feel like you're going into a slump, I feel like picking up a book that maybe you wouldn't pick up in a rush if you use your own free will, it's not a good idea. Am I even speaking English right now? Why am I overcomplicating that sentence? I didn't want to pick this book up and force myself to read it and make my reading slump worse than it was, because it wasn't really a reading slump, it was just like a reading annoyance and I couldn't find anything that I wanted to read. So I was like, I can't force myself to read this. So I mean, I literally read 2 pages of that. So can we count that as a DNF if I didn't actually even really start it? Probably not. Will I go back to it? Probably not. Unless like I see someone absolutely raving about, because like the consensus from our book club was it started really well and then it just sort of fell off. So I'm not in a rush for that one. So they are the books that I tried to read in February. So now let's get on to the books that I actually did end up reading, and let me tell you, so random. So if we go all the way back to the beginning of February, which this probably didn't help with the book slump either, I, Chelsea, decided to watch Rivals on Disney Plus. That's me just like listening to the cheers and the applause for Rivals. Side note, if you haven't watched that show yet, please, if you love books and you love book tropes, like, love that series. So then when I finished that series, I needed like dad's friend or like someone that is like close to your dad's age. If you're a family member or a friend watching this, I'm really sorry, but there is a storyline in Rivals where she sort of falls for the neighbour and he is nearer to her dad's age than to hers. Anyway, we listen and we don't judge. So I text bestie Rebecca and I was like, look, I have a very specific trope that I want to be fulfilled. So I told her my requirements, and she recommended to me a book called Unfurl by Elodie Hart, which is the first in the Alchemy series. Now, I rated this one a 3.25 star, but that, I feel like with very heavily smutty / dark romance books, with me, your limit really, unless it's like out of this world, is only ever going to be like a 4. So a 3.25 is actually not that bad. So what we have here is like a very sheltered Catholic girl who has basically been taught like sex is wrong, sex is bad, like it's literally just to procreate. You only do it to have babies. That's what she's been taught. Her mum and dad are going on like a long trip over the summer. She's being left in their flat, like they're rich. Their flat, you know, like a London flat. She's being left in this, why have I said flat 4 times? She's being left alone in this flat. And they have sort of enlisted the help of like the upstairs neighbour just to like keep an eye on her, because it's the first time that they're like leaving her alone. I think she's like 21, like she's not a baby, but she's being sheltered as if she's like a 16-year-old. What they don't know is that she is basically on the hunt to find someone so that she can lose the V card. What she realises is that this upstairs neighbour runs a sex club, kind of, that offers a program called the Unfurl program, which is to help women who still need to lose their V card lose it in a very like comfortable but sensual way. So essentially you fill out loads of forms and this and that, and then they pair you with the best experience, and it goes from there. It was exactly what I needed at the time. I needed something very low maintenance, something very low brain power, just fun, giggly, exciting, and it delivered. I mean, it's basically smut with very, 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 very minimal basic plot. Like, yeah. But it was enjoyable. According to Fable, it literally took me a day to read it. And I remember like not being able to put it down. I didn't rush into the rest of the series just because I wasn't... It sort of like ticked my box and I was like, I'm okay now. But I wouldn't be opposed to going back to it in the future if I thought, oh, I need a little something. Okay, so then we also had Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. I really, really, really did enjoy this. I rated it a 4.75 star. I feel like Summer Romance, like the title would throw people off because it didn't feel very summery to me. But I understand that the premise was like, oh, this is going to be a summer romance. You know, like the summer's going to end. And like, it's summer romance more in the idea that it's only going to last for a certain period of time and then it's going to end. The writing style in this was gorgeous. I loved the quotes. I loved reading about adults with like real life problems. Don't get me wrong, like I do love a good college romance, but it was nice to, especially like I'm about to turn 27. I feel like there's a transitional period. I am getting to the point where I have to read college romances and just pretend that you go to college when you're like 25. Because I feel like I am aging up, but also like I still read YA and enjoy YA. But it was a nice like breath of fresh air to read about adults with adult problems and children, and it's sort of also like really nice reassurance that as you get older, like your life doesn't just like stop. You can still discover new things about yourself and yeah. So this follows our female main character who, you know this from the start, she loses her mum, and then exactly a year later to the day, her husband, with whom she shares 3 children, I think it's 3, wakes up in the morning to her crying while making breakfast because obviously it's a year anniversary of her mum's death, and he basically says, this isn't working out, I think we need to separate. And then we jump again and it's another year exactly to the day where her husband says, we spent a year apart and I think it's for the best, so I think now we should get a divorce. Scumbag. And what she very quickly realises is that she gave up her whole life and identity for this man, and her mum sort of was an enabler in this situation. She loves her mum, she misses her mum, she grieves her mum, but she has a lot to like work through. And then she is taking her dog for a walk in the dog park and she meets our main male character who is in town to help out with like a family problem. It was just so like, it just felt like a slice of life. It felt as if I was reading about these people's lives, and it just felt very real, and it was very sweet, and it was lovely and full of emotion. And the best word to use for this was real. It just felt so real and I loved it. It was brilliant. Then we have The Favourite by Lane Fargo. I rated this one a 5 star. So this one followed 2 ice dancers who are sort of like roughing it. Like they come into the world of ice dancing and they are doing it all themselves. They don't have money, they don't have the trainers, they don't have the outfits, they don't have the choreographers. They are just sort of like bare knuckle fighting to get into this world. Their goal is, well, her goal is Olympics. What you sort of find out is that his goal is just to be with her and make her happy. They're very like toxic. but it's told in the style of, at the beginning of every chapter you get a little interview section, and then sort of that chapter follows the period in their life that they interviewed everyone on. The only people they interview are the other people that were in their lives, and then you get the story then from our female main character's point of view. There was so much happening in this book at all times. Like, it was crazy. I could not put it down. If you love like toxic relationships, but you also really enjoyed like the Hollywood series by Taylor Jenkins Reid, you will love this book. It was so good. Right. Then we have Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I gave this one a 4.5 star. Do have to say, very, very similar to Beach Read, because obviously like they're in like the book world. So this follows our, I can't use names because I can't remember any names, and maybe I should do the research, but I just want to be real with you, and I don't know, like I can't remember. I remember Charlie Lastra, the man he is. I can't remember. So our female main character is like a book agent. She's not like a book agent. Our female main character is a book agent, and she meets with Charlie Lastra to talk about a book that is set in a small town, a real small town, and they just sort of like bump heads a little bit. He doesn't like the book, she doesn't really like his attitude, but they like stay in contact, sort of like in like a bitter way. They like stay in contact because he's sort of like, well, I'll be interested to hear more, just not this one. And she's like, yeah, well, I'll let you know, and like there's going to be a really good book. Flash forward, so they're still in contact. She found someone else to publish this book, and it was a hit. Her sister then basically convinces her to go on a trip in the summer to this small town to do like a tour of all the places that were in the book. When she gets there, she bumps into Charlie Lastra, and that's where I'll leave the summary of that. Very, very similar to Beach Read. I don't know if I like it more or not, but I loved it when I read it, and I still like it now. If you are a romance girly that just loves love, you'll love this book. If you're not that fussed on romance, then obviously you're not going to like this book. I just feel like Emily Henry can't miss. Like, I love like the emotional depth. I like that there's always something else, like another storyline. It's not just about our two characters meeting and falling in. And this is where it just sort of like veers off weirdly. Very quickly, I did read The Full Risk by Abby Jimenez, which was a short story, rated at 3 stars. It was okay, forgettable. It's quite hard to rate them because they're so short, but really, actually, if anything, it could be like a 2, 2.5, like... Anyway, this is where things get funny. I then read the 4 books in the Alliance series, which is like probably the most... I hate flinging around the word corny, right? Because I enjoyed my time reading them. Because were they at all realistic? No. Are they going to win any sort of medals or prizes for being the best written book in the world? No. Are they going to be classics that are studied 50 years from now? No. But I had so much fun every minute reading them. And if you're in the mood for a mafia romance, I feel like that's what you want. Like, they delivered on what you expect out of a mafia book, yeah? They are ridiculous. So please, this is where I struggle with the rating as well. Like, take these ratings with a pinch of salt, because I'm rating them against other dark romance / mafia books. I'm not rating them against like fantasy books. Does that make sense? So I'm going to try and lump them together so I'm not talking too much, because the plots are quite similar. But we have Nero. So these are all by S.J. Tilley. So we have Nero, which he's like the head of the Alliance, and he ends up basically watching this girl / stalking her. But off the bat, she's very open to the idea, you know, like she like purposefully like leaves her balcony door open so that he can come in and see her. She's very naive. I rated that one a 3-star. I literally ate it up. I read it in a day, ran straight to the next one, which was King. Rated this one a 3.75. King was, she is dating someone, like 3 dates in, goes to a friend's house for dinner. That friend has another friend there. That other friend is her date's wife, and she is there with her brother, who is like the partner in the alliance. Our female main character goes to the date's house like later on to get her keys, get her stuff, and like go, where she witnesses something that maybe she shouldn't have witnessed, and so he has to kidnap her. No, I won't tell you any more, but it's ridiculous, I know, but I really enjoyed it. Then we have Dom, who we meet him in the other books. He's like in like the Chicago Mafia, maybe, which is a different city, and he wants in with the alliance, and he ends up bumping into the half-sister of King at the airport, and they sort of become entangled. Rated this one a 3-star. Finally then, we have Hans. He is like a random assassin that we meet in this series, who basically is down bad for his neighbour, and he's basically also stalking her, but she likes the look of him, and we go from there. So if you're looking for like really light-hearted, funny, silly, goofy mafia romances, I haven't felt this way since when I read the main series. That's the sort of vibe, you know, like just like, this is ridiculous, but also give me 15 of them, give me more. Then me and Em were like, we had a buddy read planned for this month, but we're now not in the mood to read what we had planned to read. What could we read? I also wanted to read fantasy, but I didn't want to read anything that was too serious. She sent me her physical TBR, and on it was assistant to the villain, which is the first in the trilogy. What's the trilogy called? I think it's just the assistant and the villain series. Anyway, I feel like my camera's gonna stop. Yeah, so I saw that and I thought, let me get that on my Kindle. We'll read that together. I heard that it's supposed to be like fantasy, but comedy, light-hearted, grumpy, sunshine. So I was like, you know what? What harm is it? Let's give it a go. Can't lie, both of us felt the same when we first started reading it. I was like, I don't know if this is going to be too silly goofy. You know, like too... It reminded me of like Shrek in the the fairy tale aspect of it. It just felt very Shrek-like, because it's like fairy tale but elevated and not too serious but not too childish. We both said, let's just persevere, see how we get on. I absolutely devoured this book. So we have our female main character who needs a job to support her family because her mum has run away. Like, her mum has abandoned them, so it's just her father and her younger sister, and her father's not very well, so she needs a job. And then one day she ends up she finds herself in a situation with this guy who then she finds out is the villain, and he offers her a job as his assistant, which she takes. And I really enjoyed this. It was so good. The way that he is like immediately like down bad, like it just, I loved it so much. So if you're looking for like, maybe even like you've never read a fantasy before, this is a good like dipping your toe in. But also like, if you want fantasy but you just don't want the like really heavy world building, you don't want to invest too much time, but you want like the stakes and like the yearning of a fantasy, this one, I rated it a 4.75 star. I don't know, I can't remember now why it wasn't a 5. I think maybe it was just I think maybe it was just like the slowness to like, for me to be like, yes. Which I feel like it's just me being picky because I don't want to throw out too many 5 stars. But it was a really enjoyable read. I would have went immediately into the second one, but the third one doesn't come out till August, and I was like, maybe. Otherwise, I know that I'll be like left in a cliffhanger, and I don't mind a cliffhanger if I know that at any point I can go into the next book. I don't like a cliffhanger if I can't then go into the next book, unless like, I mean, like Onyx Storm, I'm not gonna wait, but anyway, I digress. So then, very strangely, I was like, I have a Audible credit. I was working, and I was like, I've heard some good things about the Lights Out audiobook. And they were all correct. That ended up being a 4-star for me. Again, ridiculous. But I feel like I have this pressure to like only read books that are like more serious, or only rate books highly that are more serious. We're reading for fun. It's like I have to keep reminding myself that like reading is supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be enjoyable. So I ended up rating this a 4-star. So this follows our female main character, who is a nurse. She's working lots of hours, high pressure, stressful job. So in her downtime, she likes to pour a little glass of wine and watch masked men videos on TikTok. She has a favourite account. What she doesn't know is that her favourite account is her ex-situationship's roommate. And so they have actually already met in real life. And he kind of like, not love at first sight, but had a crush on her from the moment he like met her. And then through a funny twist of fate, he then realises that she follows his masked TikTok account and has commented on all of them, so he starts stalking her. I just loved it. It was so funny, like actually laugh out loud funny. And then you get to like the smuttiest page that you've ever read in your life, and you're like, how is this like the same book? But I really enjoyed that, and I definitely recommend reading that, listening to the audiobook of that. So all of those books were read on Kindle. All of them. I don't have a single one of those physically. So that has now made my wish list far longer, because now I need to buy them so that I have them to put them here. It's my. So then, the last 3 books I read, I thought, I gotta get some physical reading in. I need to hold a book. I need to fold some pages. I need to break some spines. I need to dog ear pages. Is that what I said? Flip pages, dog ear pages, break some spines. I needed it. So I read Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. We have Scarlett, who is our diver. Then we have Lucas, who is our swimmer. So they're in sort of the same world, but different teams. Through a very weird scenario, which I'll let you read and find out for yourself, they discover that they have, or they could potentially have, similar interests in the bedroom. And they sort of just get like thrust into each other's lives. I want to reread this book already. Like, I think Ashley on TikTok, she said that whoever told her to listen to it on audiobook, like, they were just so right. So now I'm thinking, like, when I'm working next week, I might potentially reread this by listening to the audiobook. Like, I miss these characters already. The fact that I will never read about these characters ever again. It's just, you know, we go for a rough time. It's difficult out here. It hurts. No one understands. With Not in Love, her last release, I wasn't convinced, you know. I wasn't feeling that spark. I felt every single firework from this book. Like, you know that I have loved a book when I don't have words. Like, when I think about this, all I can think is it was amazing. I loved the plot. I loved the characters. I loved the way our characters communicated with each other. I loved the smut. I loved the sports. I loved the growth. I just loved every page. Like, Deep End, Ali Hazelwood. Read it. You will not regret it. The only thing I am sad about, and I want to deduct like a minuscule of a point, is we should have kept Wets. That would have been iconic. I understand why we didn't, but it would have been iconic. And then finally, like, just... does anyone else have whiplash from what I've read this month? Because I do. So, in the month of February, The Charlie Method by Elle Kennedy was being released. Em and Tia, and a few other girls in our book club, managed to get them early because they pre-ordered from Waterstones, and for some reason Waterstones sent them out a week early. I don't know if that was the plan. I don't work for Waterstones, unfortunately. Hey, anyone from Waterstones out there need someone? Hit me up. And there was one thing about me, I get FOMO. Like, if FOMO had a #1 catcher of that disease, it would be me. I love being involved in what other people are doing. So I had already been onto Vinted when they started talking about the Charlie Method, and I bought the Dixon Rule, and I bought the Graham Effect, thinking, oh, I'll just have them and I'll read them, like, eventually. No, I then read them in February because I need to know. I need to know. So, we start with The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy. So this is Gigi Graham, which is Garrett and Hannah's child from the very first off-campus book. She plays hockey, and she's sort of like enemies / rivals with Ryder, who is the co-captain for Briar's male hockey team. He ends up making a bad impression on Garrett, which obviously, if you're a hockey player, he's like the king of hockey. So he makes a deal with Gigi that they will do some like private lessons for hockey, because there are some things that she still needs to learn. In exchange, she will talk very nice things about Ryder into her dad's ear. But obviously, from the get-go, lots of tension, lots of chemistry, and I just love Elle Kennedy's writing. Like, I will admit with this one, there was, and I said this in my vlog, there were like a few pages where I was like, we could be wrapping this. We could. But also, I'm not mad because it was enjoyable. So it's like, yeah, maybe we could have, but also like, I'll take it. It's one of those, I feel like maybe if they'd cut it out, I'd be like, oh, I wish we had more. And then when they leave it in and you are given more, you think, was it necessary? So like, really, I feel sorry for authors, they can't really win. I ended up rating this one a 4.5 star. And so obviously, as soon as I finished that one, I had to pick up the Dixon Rule. So this follows Diana Dixon, who is Gigi's best friend, and Shane. So this follows Diana, who is Gigi's best friend from the first book. She has recently found herself going through a breakup, and then our main male character is Shane, and all throughout the Graham Effect, they were clashing because he also is going through a breakup, but was sleeping his way through the cheerleading team. She is the cheer captain, and she hasn't got time for heartbroken cheerleaders. So they sort of like are clashing throughout this. Then in this, he ends up moving in to the apartment next door to hers, and they end up having to fake date. And it's beneficial for both of them to be fake dating. 5 star. 5 star. I love fake dating. I don't care that it's like obvious. I don't care that it's been done a million times. I love it every single time. I loved these characters. I loved the way that she did it. Like, with that being said, I am 30% into the Charlie method. And it's even better. I think this is 6 stars. So we've literally gone like 4.5, 5, 6 star. Yeah? I haven't finished it, obviously, 30%. But it's incredible. Amazing. So then all I have left to read of Elle Kennedy is like her other non-sports romance books. There is a character that has like a subplot in this that I'm thinking, and they play a different sport, and I'm thinking, why else would you make a big deal out of this character unless you're branching out in your sports romances? So Elle, girl, I think we're picking up what you're throwing down, or maybe I'm completely wrong, and yeah, I don't know. So they are all of the books that I read this month. I don't really know what happened, and I actually am excited to see where March takes me. I know in March we have the release of Wild Side by Elsie Silver, so I know that's definitely getting read. I am now itching again to read A City of Flames. I am also now excited. I am also now tempted to read Once Upon a Broken Heart. So maybe I'll try again with the fantasies. That's a classic. So maybe I'll try again with the fantasies in March. I'm definitely like sports romance out. So maybe after the Charlie method it won't be a sports romance. Maybe I need to go back in with a few more dark romances and then fantasy. Who knows? But if you had any amazing reads in February, please let me know. Because I love reading books that other people love. Like, I know that sounds silly, but I find it so much easier to read a book when someone else is like, I've just read this and it was amazing, please read it. So let me know if you have any of those. Let me know what your plan for reading in March is. If you have any good systems for like a mood reading TBR, but also for someone that wants to keep their physical TBR on the down low, hit me up, because I obviously want it to be fun and exciting, and I want to have like set TBRs for the month, but a lot of mine are on my Fable list, so maybe I need to do like a number thing, and then I just like scroll and I go, and then that's the number. Maybe I could do that for March. That would be quite interesting. Yeah. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, all of the YouTube things. And I will see you in my next video.